discussed on this podcast are determined by the Justice Coordinating Commission of the Sisters of Providence of St. Mary of the Woods, Indiana. Guest opinions do not necessarily reflect those of the Sisters of Providence. To learn more, go to www.spsmw.org.
Welcome to Just Us, where we talk about creating an equitable human community and influencing change. Through shared stories, conversations, and inspiration, you will learn how Just Us can make a difference in our communities. Motivated by our guests' experiences and insights, let's take action for the common good. If not now, tell me when. In today's episode, I would like to introduce our guest, who is a member of the Menominee Nation and is the mother-in-law of missing and murdered victim, Caitlin Kelly. Marla is joining us in this shared space to tell us about Caitlin and her grandson. The issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women is a justice issue most people do not follow, including many tribal members. We hope that today our listeners will be educated about the factors that have created this injustice and will be moved to support and help inform friends and families in their own communities. Marla, I understand that you're a member of the Menominee Nation, and there are several components of that. Can you tell us about that, and where do you belong, and maybe the names of some of your ancestors?
Yes, thank you for allowing me this opportunity and Caitlin this opportunity to speak on her behalf. So how we introduce ourselves is Marla Mikimitas and Akayan, Kayas, Mamachitaw Natawim, Awasa Natotam, Nanawyo Minihikan, and Excuwakian. I am the granddaughter of Lila Awasapin, Grant Tawasapin, Tilly Cal Mikimitas. My mother is Deborah, and my father is Leon Mikimitas. I am from the Menominee Nation, or as we call it, Kayas Mamachitao, means the ancient beings people, the ancient movers, as we moved around our territory, which is Wisconsin, Upper Michigan, Eastern Minnesota, Upper Illinois, the western coast of Lower Michigan, and the corner of Iowa, which is all still Menominee territory, or Kayas Mamachitao territory. And so for me, this is an injustice issue, as well as a humanitarian issue, equally a humanitarian issue.
Was Caitlin's missing a major factor in your standing up, or were you standing up before?
Yes, I was actually standing up before, and this experience and situation that occurred with Caitlin catapulted my voice, my presence in the community and at large to 100th degree. This situation, her losing her to this violence against women, struck me myself to its core, as well as our community, because this has happened before. She is one of many thousands of young women, adolescent females, girls, women who have been taken, abducted, kidnapped, and later found dead or are still missing. So, and I take that responsibility seriously, as my grandmothers especially have shared these responsibilities and this knowledge that we need to continue to protect, we need to continue to share the voices and the teachings that allow, nurture, and reinforce the strength of our women, because of the fact that we're living in a patriarchal society, which of course does not, number one, protect our women, does not encourage women's voices to be heard, thoughts, and does not value, ultimately does not value the voice and the presence and the intelligence of women. So
Well, and on that point, Marla, when we last visited, you talked quite a bit about the role of women in the Indigenous culture. And I was shocked to hear that you feel, and it makes sense since I've reflected, you feel that what is happening to Indigenous young women and what has been happening is the result of the destruction of your families and the family structure that occurred so many generations ago. And that's how these young women have become victims. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
sure, yes. So this all began in 1492. However, more so with the policy of the boarding schools back in the 1800s. With that came the kidnapping and of our children. So what happens because our children are the next generation of leaders and spokespeople and those that are to nurture the next generation and so on, and teach, right? So we value those beings, those young, beautiful beings, and with the family structure having been torn apart, they didn't learn that. In fact, they learned the total opposite. They were not able to use their language. They were not able to comfort and nurture and teach their siblings. So that fiber of the family unit, that kinship relationship that normally innately is taught and learned, was no longer there. And in fact, they were taught to abuse and harm each other and harm one another in so many various violent ways that was unknown to our Indigenous population. And so what's taught in this toxic masculinity, masculine society today is to harm and not value women, that the man is the power and the ultimate voice in all decisions. And what we're learning now is that they're not. And we see that reflective in policies and the politics that are happening at this very time, this very moment, what's going on in the world, and very reflective.
Is it hard then for, like you, when you were raising your family, is it hard to teach relationships between families? I have a friend who has no cousins, and she cannot understand why we get so excited about community get-togethers and getting to see our cousins. So this is what happened, I suppose, in many generations where the families were torn apart.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's difficult if you haven't grown up that way.
Yes, we don't realize the harm that was done for generations in so many ways. And so let's talk now about Caitlin Kelly, and that's for our listeners, that's Katelley. Your daughter-in-law was 23, correct?
Yes.
When she was kidnapped and murdered. How were you notified about this?
So her mother called me the next day and said that she didn't return home from the night before. And she always called because she was taking care of baby that evening, which is Caitlin's grandson, my grandson. And so she called me to see if I've heard from her. And I went over to her and I heard the urgency in her voice. And I heard that, and I immediately went over to her, and I saw her visibly upset, and I told her we need to call the police. The police, when she called, said that they can't do anything until it's been 24 hours or 72 hours. I forget which was. And and I told her that no, we need to have them start looking ASAP. And I was very adamant about stressing that to them. And
Because
so,
there is a law about missing women her age, right?
right,
I think it's called Savannah's Act, that these women who are in the age group of Caitlin, if they're reported missing, they have to begin looking now. But that didn't happen for you or for her, right?
right. So that policy, that Western policy that said, not to look for her for 24 hours or 72 hours is not a teaching that we as Indigenous people would have projected or supported. When one of our women go missing or are absent, we look for them. We ask questions immediately, not within 24 hours. And I think that's based on, that time frame is based on, well, maybe they're out messing around, maybe they're drunk somewhere, maybe they ran away on their own. All these scenarios that
Yes.
people make up about not just our people, but of women. They just assume,
Yes.
oh, they're probably with somebody else. They're probably cheating if they're in relationships, or and don't
Yes.
want to be, yeah, and don't want to be found right now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's wait.
Mm-hmm.
So, however, in our situation, Caitlin never took that long to call. She always called the next morning or that evening just to say where she was, and that didn't happen. So we both knew, her mom and I, Michelle Kelly, her mom and I both knew something happened. And the person that she left with was not a good person. I later found out, I didn't know immediately who this person was. When I found out who it was, I shared with the police. I said, you know, because I because I felt that male police don't, and these were young officers. And so I just reiterated what I assumed that they knew, but if they didn't, then I would share this information. So I stated, because I know about rape victim sexual assault, and I knew that perpetrators do not let their victims leave. So when perpetrator is assaulting or have victimized their person, they don't let them leave. No, not without further harm or death. So these abusive men or abusive women will take it to the end, especially if they're on drugs or drinking. And so I shared this with the officers, and when he shared with me that the perpetrator admitted getting into a fight with her, I said, there you go. This man, this male who has priors in abuse and violence against women would not just let her leave. And with that information, I have no idea what they did. However, when they brought him in, they let him go. According to the police officer that took took his statement, said that, oh, he said he didn't do it, and so we let him go. And when he came back and shared this with me, and at the time he was speaking to me, so the authorities were the police, local police was speaking with me, because Michelle's mom, they were so in shock as I was. However, I know I needed to speak up because they could not speak. They were in such shock that they were
Mhm.
unable to speak.
Mhm.
So I I said, did you look for defensive wounds? Because I know for a fact that Caitlin would have fought as hard as
Yes.
she could to get back to her
Yes.
baby. I know. And he looked at me like he didn't know what I was talking about. I'm
Oh
like,
my.
uh-oh, uh-oh. He goes,
Mhm.
well, I'll get back to you. So a week, 2 weeks later, he comes back and goes, yeah, I didn't find any defense. I'm like, excuse me, but those wounds would have healed.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh
goodness. So
my.
this is what we were dealing with too, is that, the FBI came in, local police, tribal police, young, very inexperienced. The FBI agent, very inexperienced. I asked if they've ever, worked on cases like these, and I really hate to say cases because these are women, and
Yes.
and so and he said no, and I'm thinking, oh my God, and so
Oh my
I
God.
shared with yes, so I shared with the tribal police. I said, well, I'm going to somehow get a private investigator on this. I said, because you just don't have the experience, and this is what we need. He goes, no, I've been in the police for 15 for I think no, it wasn't 15, it was like maybe 10 years, not even
Mhm.
8 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, but have you worked on any missing and murdered cases? Situations, and he said, well, no, but I've got experience. And I'm like, well, then no, you don't. I said, I'm hiring
Mm.
a private investigator. And he goes, no, you can't. And I thought, okay, so this is one of the things in our policies that we need to stop. We cannot allow other people to and there are pros and cons. I understand there's jurisdictional issues. I get that. However, the goal is to find the murderer, the kidnapper, the assailant, the perpetrator. That's our goal. And to get justice.
Yes.
And our
No
goal is to
doubt.
find our women and get justice.
Mm. Let's go back a minute, Marla.
Sure.
When did this happen?
Uh,
In
June June 17th is when I got the call,
okay. Of
2020.
2020. And we're
Yes,
now in 2026. And she was not found until March of 2021,
correct.
right? So, what's the status of her case now?
So because I am not biological mother, because I ask too many questions, because I am adamant, because I am persistent, they no longer speak to me.
At any of the levels, at the tribal level, at the local level, at the FBI?
Correct, correct. As far as I know, it's still an open case. Are they doing any further investigations? I I couldn't answer that. My guess is no. I think it was a year, 2 years ago that was the last I have heard them speak, is that they're waiting for witnesses to come forward, anybody to share information, and that's it. Are they going out and getting information? I I don't believe so. No.
And you said she was very responsible. She checked in regularly.
Yes.
Um, and she had her son cared for by her grandmother or her mother
Yes.
at that time. But
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about her approach to life and her mothering and what you observed throughout the
Yes.
time.
Yes. She was an awesome mom. In fact, she's been wanting to be a mother, and they previously, my son and her, Caitlin, tried to have a baby prior to my grandson, and they had lost through miscarriage. So they kept trying, and finally, in January 28th, had my grandson. She's a very attentive mom and just loved and still loves him, and is with him now. And he misses her every day, still cries for her. And he's now at the age that he's asking, what happened to my mama?
Um, I've gone on the internet and read about her case, and she has a Facebook page someone has opened called Justice for Caitlin Kelly. And the
Yes, I
pictures of
did
her,
that.
and did you, the pictures of
Yes,
her, the smiles, and you see her with her son, and to know
yes.
that now we don't know what happened. A big open wound for sure. So you are working hard not only to keep her memory alive and her spirit alive, along with her family, I'm sure, but you're very involved in the work of helping Indigenous women. And by the way, I saw a lovely clip of you dancing on YouTube. There were so many people in the audience, and you had a big area for your performance. Your feet fell so softly to the drum music. I was mesmerized. And this again is just an example of another ancestral tradition that you are trying to keep alive and pass on, not just for the other women, but for your grandson as well, I'm sure. But you're involved in many other things to raise up the image of women and family within Indigenous people. Tell us about the water organization that you have.
Yeah, so I began this new journey. It's called Omatnamene Metakos or Tamaskau. It's a Menominee canoe journey. And this came from a vision I had in my early teens from the ancestors. And they shared with me that our people will be in canoes again. So I initially thought, what a beautiful vision that I was gifted. Had no idea the extent of what that meant. What I learned and what I'm learning now is that back in the 80s, which I'm aging myself, back in the
Mhm.
80s, there were many other Indigenous societies that had that same vision because we're now seeing other canoe journeys around the world. And this started back in the 1980s, late 70s. So what I had to do then was begin that work to get our people back in canoes. And what does that all mean, really, in the big larger picture? what that means, because our canoe is representative of balance. And what I also learned were there's a term that other Indigenous communities use to state that their canoes are tipped, which is a reflection of the community. So, and what does that mean when your canoe is tipped? It means you're unbalanced. And so my goal was to get our people healthy again and in balance, reconnecting, reunifying our communities, our families back to our original teachings, because that is what was going to heal our people and balance our canoes again. So I went on that journey myself because I was told you have to do those things first, and then you are able to speak about it through
You have to
experience. Yeah.
you have to do the work yourself.
Yes,
Yes.
because what I didn't want to do is speak about it and not really know. So there's a difference between learning and knowing. I can learn or be taught something, which is Western education, and then it
Yes.
goes back on the shelf.
Hmm.
Indigenous teachings are you learn it, you practice it, you know it. And
Hmm.
this is something that I had to go through myself. And it took, I'm going to say, almost 2 decades for me to do that.
Well, one of the things you said to me was that the person in the canoe and the water must become one. And that's a totally different perception of, okay, I have this vessel, I have this vehicle, this canoe, and I'm going to put it on the water and I'm going to get in it. That's three different things. But what you said is you have to
Mhm.
become one. And that's what takes all that practice,
Well,
isn't
that,
it?
yeah, well, that happens automatically. So
It
what I
does?
did was I absolutely, it's automatic, because what happens and what I did was I had and I had to do this. So I invited my son, and at the time he was probably about 5 years old. And since then I've been raising my babies and my grandbabies in the canoe. So I brought him on that journey with me, and I had to do that again. I had to take that journey myself before invited other people. And so when I did that, all the beings came to us and greeted us. We had the ducks, we saw the otter, we saw the fish, we saw the turtles, we saw the eagles, and other beings that came to greet us. They came close to our canoe and welcomed us welcomed us back. The water, so she greeted us as well. And so when all of those come together, all of those relationships become reunited, we become entwined with the water, with those beings, with the canoe. We say the canoe has a heart, has lungs, has ribs, and has kidneys and a nose. She's a living entity. And so with her gift, she connected all of us together again. And for us, that's a huge gift of healing and balance coming back together again. So, and I did this with my son. So now he has those teachings as well. And my daughter and my babies, grandson, who is Caitlin's son. I raised him since he was a baby. He knows in out, and he's wanted to paddle since he was 3 years old, and he now knows how to paddle. He has his own canoe and kayak. So this teaching and this gift is what is saving our family, saving our community. It is a struggle to sometimes get our people there. And that was the overwhelming responsibility that I took on. However, that was it. That vision was shown me. So I knew that I had to take that responsibility. And I did that with the elders, and I knew that's where strength comes from is elders. So I met with them first. That was one of the first things I did was met with them.
Now, Marla, tell me, when you say the elders, what does that mean?
Oh, more so the women. So in our indigenous culture, it's the women. The women are the
Ah,
strength. The women are the speakers, the wisdom. The women have that wisdom and knowledge and those teachings because we are the nurturers. We are the teachers. In our language, it's the first teacher. Our mother is our first teacher, and the water. She is also our first teacher. She is our first home. And this is also reflective in our teachings that the women are our first home because we are also water. We're more water than we are human, right? So when I introduce
yes.
myself, I also say Nipe Nitawim, which is water I am.
Ah, say that word again.
Nipe Nitawim.
I'll have to look that up. You know, Marla, when you were talking to me, to us about this journey with your children, your son and your grandchildren and the water and you're doing this with other people, I know. I was thinking, well, if I was getting ready for a canoe trip, I got to have my styrofoam cooler and pack it with ice and have all this other stuff and some rope and get my flip-flops and oh, how. And then you told a totally different story that is so much better. Now, where, if I wanted to go and find out when this canoe training, water training, and connection with
Journey.
nature, yeah, when it's going on, where would I find that out?
That you can go to Omatnamene, Metikos, Otamaska, OMO, Canoe Journey,
Canoe
which
journey.
will be on the Menominee. Yes, it'll be on the Menominee Reservation, May 23rd.
Oh, okay. It's probably already booked, huh? A lot of
Oh,
it.
no, you can call to register. You can bring
Uh-huh.
your own canoe, kayak, and is open to anybody and everybody.
Okay.
Yes, I also have elders in pontoons. So I reserve a pontoon for any elders that want to join
Ah,
and are unable to paddle. So
sure, sure. I'd probably be on that the first time. For those of us who need to understand the culture and need to understand what's going on with all of these missing Indigenous young girls, the United Nations has a page that talks about respect, not dehumanization. And that's something worth reading. And for our listeners also, we'll have an accompanying newsletter that goes further into depth with other researches and other stories missing young women. And these are not all vanished people of the past. There are so many. I went out to Google AI, and my question was, where are the Indigenous people living in the United States today? And the response was, American Indigenous people are present throughout the United States with over 70 to 80% living outside of reservations in cities, suburbs, and rural areas. They are not a vanished people of the past. There are over 5 million Native Americans, including those reported as multiple races, representing 574 federally recognized tribes, and their communities are vibrant, modern, and diverse. And you and others like you are working also through your websites to bring them in to get to know more about their past and their people. Tell me, what other Indigenous-led organizations do you think deserve more attention than is currently given?
There is a program in Milwaukee. It's called HRIR Wellness, Her Wellness, run director Leah Denny. Phenomenal work that she has done and what she created there. So this program for victims of sexual assault or violence, when they go there, it's all inclusive. It's for anybody. And when they go there, they don't have to pay. So it's all fundraised and donation based. Healing Indigenous Roots, it's called. The other is Waking Women Healing Institute. They're based out of Gresham. The director of that is Kristen Welsh.
Okay.
So now locally that she's been doing a lot of similar work, creating and developing projects, events, community events, ceremonial practices to help heal and support our survivors of domestic violence.
Yeah. We'll have some of those listed in our newsletter as well. So May 5th, the month of May, actually, we observe as Indigenous Peoples Month. And on May 5, we have Red Dress Day. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. This is a day of recognition, of honoring and bringing awareness to this horrific experience that our not just our women endure on May 5th. So yeah, that's huge. It's a huge win as far as recognition and awareness.
And we're told to wear dress that day, a red dress, or even to hang a red dress on a tree outside our homes. And I think that's a beautiful symbol that any of us can do. And also, I would encourage people. I'm going to be going to a powwow this summer, and there's a site that you can just go on the internet and Google powwow locations. And I'm encouraging our listeners to find out where those are locally. But you need to tell me and our listeners, Marla, what are some of the things that someone like me, uneducated to your culture, what do I do that's offensive? What's common that I would do that's offensive to your culture? And how do I behave when I come to a powwow? What do I wear?
You can wear your street clothes. Not
Okay.
everybody has to not everybody has to wear an outfit that is traditional to our society and our ways of practice, which really is handed down from our ancestors. So it's okay. We have songs that are sung that are all inclusive, that
Mm-hmm.
anybody can come in and join us in the dance. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that you have to dress as we do, because a
Yes.
lot of our outfits are and may be handed down. So
Uh,
one of
eh,
the things that is encouraged is to ask. Also, if you want to take a picture, ask.
okay.
Yes.
Yes. And it would not be appropriate for me to put a headband and and a feather in my hair.
No,
Yeah, I think that's not appropriate.
no.
There are such simple things that we don't know that we need to go experience the culture, learn from, and then come back again.
Yes.
Is there a particular, is there, should we be talking to our federal representatives that we could write on behalf of Caitlin Kelly? That's Katelynkelley. What can we do on behalf of these missing women and on behalf of her?
Absolutely. Let's change policy. Let's educate our men, our boys, start young, educate them on the respect of women, educate them on the respect of our Mother Earth, on the respect of our water, all those things that they learn early in life, early as babies growing up to nurture and value those things. They learn also to value human life, all the beings, not just human beings, our animals. And this is one of the things that I've been teaching my grandson as well, about the life and death of all beings and how to respect and nurture life. And those need to be retaught, especially with our males and our females, right? And our females need to know that it's not acceptable how the men have been disrespectful. What does that look like? We already know how it feels, right? What does it
Right.
look like? Because we think that, oh, they're just messing around. That's okay. That didn't really hurt. Yes, it does. It does hurt. And it's a prolonged teaching that is irreversible, through to our core. In fact, to our physiology, the biology of our being, those things are impacted, and our spirit feels that, and then our body responds. So again, it's just not just, it is relearning and reteaching, re-loving who we are, loving who they are, and having that compassion for each other, for our family, for our community, for the world, for all beings, and reconnecting. You cannot, and this is what happened. We were so disconnected because of what happened. However, now we're in a different context, we're in a different time. Now, what I'm doing as a soul human water being is I'm reconnecting and helping others reconnect. That's what I can do. I can also, on that level, I can also, on the community level, make those changes and bring people together back in the canoes. On a state, national, world level, there are also policies and changes. I can also have a voice in, which is why I stand up today and yesterday for all beings and all connections and relationships that have to be mended, that have to be reunited in a healthy, positive way. I know it's overwhelming. I understand that. When I first started, I was like, how am I going to get my people back in the canoe, right? So
Uh-huh.
I have to start with myself. And that's the first thing I did, start with myself, start small. And so what I shared was that start really, it's about that pebble in the water, right?
Yes, the pebble in the
That
water.
pebble, yes. So the pebble, start small. We're the pebble in that water, and we impact as we go out, as those
Yes,
ripples go out, you will impact.
that's a beautiful image to leave us with.
I think America And the world, as America, as the world on that level, needs a shift to these practices and value systems that are all inclusive, earth, water, knowledge, led by the heart. This is how we change. This is how we help our women not become empowered, become a part of our community again. We are the strongest despite our silence. Do not mistake that for passiveness, being weak, or being unintelligent. We are simply being respectful.
Thank you, Marla, so much for sharing this time and this space with us today. We hope that all of our listeners are
You're welcome.
inspired. You have inspired us, and we have learned so much. And think about what you can do to make a difference. Research the Indigenous people in your state and your area. Find out about the missing and murdered Indigenous women. You know now why that's happening. Are you ready to make a difference within your community? And if not now, tell me when. Justice is a production of the Sisters of Providence of St. Mary of the Woods, Indiana. Our producers are Susie Ray and myself. Our associate producers are Dr. Perlette Springer and Sister Barbara Batista. Please visit www.spsmw.org/justus to leave your comments, reviews, and any suggested topics. And please share this podcast with your family and your friends. We'll talk with you soon.